On October 25th, 2005, Resident Evil 4 came out on the PlayStation 2, and unlike the original GameCube release, this version came with something entirely new, an additional mode known simply as Separate Ways. Instead of playing as Leon, we see everything unfold through the eyes of Ada Wong. This bonus campaign allowed us to see the game from a different angle. It gave context to certain plot points and revealed what was happening behind Leon's back. It served as a way to glue the entire story together. It filled in the missing pieces that weren't shown in the base game. Now, when it comes to the gameplay, it didn't really do anything special. It was essentially an asset flip, and apart from one new location, Ada pretty much just ran the same course as Leon, but backwards and much faster. The entire runtime was around 2.5 to 3 hours, and consisted of just 5 missions. It wasn't anything groundbreaking. But despite that, it was an essential part of the lore within Resident Evil 4. So when the remake finally released in 2023, its absence was immediately felt. For all the amazing changes and additions the remake implemented, it was clearly still missing something very important. And on September 21st, 2023, that missing piece of the puzzle finally arrived. And with it came an entirely new experience. One that not only lived up to its expectations, but far exceeded them. This is the reimagining of Separate Ways. Much like in the original, Ada is still very much a world-class super spy, only this time the DLC leans further into that identity. Separate Ways is just a full-on action-packed spy thriller, but beyond the action, it also serves as a looking glass into Ada's character. It shows a side of her we rarely get to see, one capable of emotion, hesitation, and even heroism. Ada's always been known to be an elusive character. She keeps her cards close to her chest. She's cold and detached, and rarely ever sticks around for a full conversation. But somehow, she can't seem to hide from her conflicting conscience throughout the entire DLC. Her moral compass and worldview begin to shift due to the events that occur throughout the story. It's this shift that leads to her eventual act of defiance towards Wesker. But how exactly does she get to that point? Well, that's what Separate Ways is for. It's here to turn the story upside down in order to reveal the full picture. The opening to Separate Ways is completely different from the original, and it immediately sets the tone for the rest of the DLC. Like I said before, it's a classic spy thriller through and through. It even has a level of cheesiness that resembles that of the original. The story begins with a dance, and a pretty iconic one at that. It's a very suave intro, and Ada of course uses her signature finesse to join in on the show.
That's no way to finish a dance.
In this moment, we get our first true look into her relationship with Luis. In fact, Luis plays a pivotal role in the DLC just like he does in the main game. His character, along with Leon, is essentially a catalyst for Ada's eventual moral shift. But right now, Ada doesn't have time for change. In fact, she isn't ready for it. She's focused on one thing and one thing only, the mission. And right now, she needs to get Luis out of the castle. But that's easier said than done, because standing in her way is one of Salazar's deadly henchmen, a creature known simply as the Black Robe. And this is where the remake makes one of its most significant changes. In 2005, there wasn't a looming threat shadowing over Ada. She didn't have a villain specifically tied to her. All of them pretty much just went to Leon, and she was kinda just there to pick up the scraps. But here it's different. For the majority of the DLC, he relentlessly stalks and preys on Ada. He's always watching, always waiting. And when the time comes, he forces his way into the story when she least expects it. Each encounter with him is more intense than the last, and even then, he doesn't let up. But neither does Ada. She has a specific way of handling certain situations, and it's all done with a particular level of finesse. After Ada deals with the Black Robe, we are reintroduced to one of the most iconic villains in the entire Resident Evil universe, Albert Wesker.
What will you do about it?
Louise is already en route to the church. I'm tracking him every step of the way.
Very well. Then I suggest you hurry.
He obviously appears at the very end of the main game, but here we pretty much see him throughout the entire DLC. I mean, after all, he is Ada's employer, and his ultimate goal is to obtain the Amber in order to fuel his god complex, and to weed out the weak, leaving only the strongest to rule the world. It's essentially a forced evolution through mass extinction. Ada, of course, doesn't dare bite the hand that feeds her, so for now, she plays along like a puppet on a string, blind to her own complicity. Her path forward has just become more complicated. She now has to make her way to the church in order to rendezvous with Luis, but first, she has some business to take care of. This is where the DLC truly showcases Ada's unique combat and traversal mechanics, most notably her signature hookshot, which has now been fully implemented into the gameplay. It's not just used for traversal and accessing new areas, no, it's a deadly tool used in combat as well. But not everything in her arsenal is deadly. She also has an accessory known as the Iris, used for tracking and investigating. In many ways, Ada is essentially just Catwoman with a gun. She's agile, untrustworthy, and always one step ahead.
So he wants me to retrieve the Amber. An object of ill omen. What terrible actions will be done in its name, and who will pay its dark cost? Because in this world, someone always pays. Best not to ask who or why. I understood that. Made my peace with it. Until that one night in Raccoon City changed everything.
In Ada's monologue, she talks about the Amber and the danger it poses while also looking back on the trauma she endured back in Raccoon City. No matter how much she tries to hide it, that night truly changed her. It taught her to question her own motives as well as everyone else's, whereas before, she had made peace with not knowing who pays the ultimate price. This monologue sets the stage for her internal conflict, one that begins to slowly unravel through the course of the story. And as she makes her way to the church, we as the players are reintroduced to familiar areas that are shown in a new light. The areas feel almost still and undisturbed. Leon's presence has yet to wander this deep into the village. And as Ada makes her way closer to the church, it becomes apparent that something is stirring within the community, and that just so happens to be Leon's arrival.
So kind of you to keep our friends busy. Let's see if we can find another route to the church.
One of my favorite things about Separate Ways in general is just how Capcom intertwined the two stories together. In both versions of the DLC, Ada is the one to ring the church bell in the beginning of the game. The main difference between the two is that in the original, Ada is actually a part of the village fight itself. She's in the background fighting while Leon has his back turned. The remake, however, doesn't do this. Instead, after not finding Luis at the designated meeting area, Ada decides to lend Leon some help.
Sounds like he could use a little help. Don't worry, Leon. First time's free.
Now that Leon has entered the fold, both stories are now moving at the same time, but their paths rarely cross. While Leon makes his way through the village, Ada finds herself backtracking to the main square, and is immediately greeted by a familiar face, the merchant.
Hey, stranger. So what are you buying?
You've picked quite the place to set up shop, stranger.
Aye, and look what it brought me.
Funnily enough, the merchant has been heavily changed from the original, which didn't allow for Ada to upgrade any of her weapons. All you could do was buy and sell. Speaking of weapons, Ada's loadout is the same as the OG. Both the sawed-off shotgun and explosive crossbow make a return, but this time they can be fully upgraded. She'll need any weapon she can get, because the moment she enters the square, she immediately encounters something that isn't native to the village. The Black Robe arrives once again. This fight is really unique, and the same can be said about the Black Robe himself. His main ability is the art of hallucination. He essentially surrounds the arena with shadow clones that mimic his every move. The entire area has been coated in a thick fog, and everything about it feels surreal. Even though it's an open area, it somehow feels like everything around Ada is closing in. When Ada eventually gains the upper hand, something within her prevents her from finishing the fight.
What is wrong with me?
It's clear that Ada is showing early signs of the Plaga infection, which is a brand new story beat in the remake. In the very first cutscene with the Black Robe, Ada gets hit with a bit of shrapnel from one of his attacks. This small injury was the gateway for the virus to enter her system. Having Ada suffer from the Plaga adds an entirely new element to the story. Now, the beauty of Separate Ways is that it never slows down, it only continues to ramp up, and this constant narrative flow brings Ada to the village manor, where she saves Leon for a second time. Although Ada saves Leon, she is still very much using him to benefit her own mission. But she also still cares for him. Like I said, it's a complicated relationship. But once Leon leaves, Ada slips into the manor to investigate, and is completely blindsided by Mendez. Ada is chased out of the manor and into the woods that lead directly to the factory. It's here where she investigates the holding cell, but in classic fashion, she is interrupted yet again, this time by the rev of 2 chainsaws.
A clean strike.
She literally can't catch a break, because the moment she escapes, she immediately passes out due to the Plaga, just like Leon. And after hours of being unconscious, she wakes up to Wesker.
Having a bad day?
Wesker, to what do I owe this pleasure?
Wesker in the remake is way more involved in the conflict than in the original. This time around, he isn't just a guy giving directions from a chair. No, he pops up multiple times to remind her of who's in charge.
I'm not here to babysit you. See that you remain an asset and not a liability. I have absolutely no use for your incompetence.
Easy with the threats, Wesker.
Just get it done. I'll be in touch.
Now at this point in the main story, Leon and Ashley are just now making their way towards the cabin, but following closely behind is Ada. Both sequences are parallel to one another. Ada fights through the square just like Leon, but instead of seeking shelter in a cabin, she doesn't have anywhere to retreat back to, because standing in her way is an El Gigante. In the remake, the El Gigante has been given an actual boss fight, whereas in the original, the fight took place in a narrow area similar to the encounter after the original cabin. This new rendition of the fight includes mechanics. Albeit simple, they add more of a dynamic feel to the fight. Ada has to zip around between buildings as the El Gigante crumbles each structure from below. It's a pretty cool fight, and it does a great job of showing off Ada's mobility. Now after some time, the El Gigante finally falls, and Ada finishes it off for good.
Now stay down. Sweet dreams.
Immediately following the fight, Ada and Luis reunite with one another, and the scene is exactly the same as the main game. But the difference this time around is that there's more context. That's the beauty of Separate Ways as a whole. It provides even more context to the narrative, which further impacts the story. As the scene concludes, we finally see what becomes of their interaction, and it just so happens to lead them to Salazar's castle. As they scale the castle walls, something within Luis itches to be let out, and the moment they have a minute to themselves, it reveals itself.
There is this one thing I must do before I can recover the ember.
Before. This is not a negotiation, Louis, so choose your next words carefully.
Whoa. Listen, there is someone who needs my help. You know me, always the good Samaritan.
Let me guess. Leon?
Yes, exactly. Leon and that young woman, they are both infected. They need this medicine. It slows the infection, and I know it works. I used it on myself.
We already know that Luis is motivated by his need to do good, but this scene shows another angle of his transformation. It proves that everything he was doing for Leon and Ashley was genuine. But of course, that doesn't stop Ada from pointing a gun to his head. The situation is de-escalated when Luis tells Ada straight up that she is also infected. As soon as she realizes what's at stake, her demeanor shifts a bit, and you can actually see the subtle emotion leak from her face. Obviously, in order to succeed in her mission, she needs to be alive, so she allows Luis the chance to help not only her, but Leon and Ashley as well. In the main game, Luis calls Leon right when he enters the castle, and lets him know that there is a medicine to suppress the symptoms. In Separate Ways, we get to see what actually becomes of that medicine, because shortly after the call ends, Ada and Luis make their way to the laboratory. But instead of finding it in one piece, they are met with fire. Luis can't just sit there and watch everything he's made come undone. No, he runs into the fire with reckless abandon. Ada, of course, can't just let him die. She runs into the fire herself in order to save him.
If you're trying to kill yourself, can you do it after you've delivered the amber?
Luis is clearly distraught as everything he worked for continues to burn in the fire. His last shot at redemption has been reduced to ashes, or so it seems.
Make more. You know how, just do it.
Ada suggests that he just makes more of the medicine, and it's this realization that drives the momentum throughout the rest of the castle section. The ingredients Luis needs happen to be within the castle, and it's Ada's job to retrieve them.
Wish me luck.
While searching for the ingredients, Ada reunites with Leon for the first time in person, and the interaction is exactly the same. But we now know something that Leon doesn't. Ada is currently working towards getting the medicine he and Ashley both need. Since Ada doesn't work alongside him and chooses not to tell him, Leon never finds this out, and he's never really made aware of anything she has done for him up until this point. She acts as a silent guardian, and never seeks validation from anyone. All of her good deeds go unnoticed, and that's on purpose. So before Leon can collect himself fully, Ada has already disappeared out the window. After their interaction, we are taken back to familiar locations both from the main game and the original RE4. In the OG, there were areas within the castle that didn't quite make the cut in the remake, but that was purposeful, because now they are present in separate ways. Areas such as the Novistador sewers and the drill room make a return, but both of them have been given that signature remake aesthetic. The drill room has been drastically changed, while still remaining nostalgic. There are no longer two cultists driving a drill towards Ashley. Instead, Ada has to shoot her way out. A lot of the castle in Separate Ways feels more like the original in a way. It's almost as if Ada is being tested within each room, forced into an obstacle course of sorts. Even though the castle in Separate Ways is more in line with the OG, it still feels like it belongs in the remake. It shares the same look and tone while maintaining a vibe specific to the original. After finding all of the ingredients, Ada makes it to the castle's exterior where she meets up with Luis. During the time in which Ada was grabbing all the ingredients, Luis finds the amber. But there's a slight problem. The parasite within Ada reacts harshly to the amber, and it immediately begins to intensify all of the symptoms she was already experiencing. Now, of course, Luis whips up a vial of medicine in 10 seconds and administers it to Ada.
This will knock out the parasite, but only for a time. Just remember, it's not a cure. We still need to find a way to get that thing out of you.
But like he said, it's not a cure, and it also takes some time for it to start working. But the last thing she has is time, because just as the medicine enters her system, fog devours the skies.
It's coming.
The Black Robe always tends to show up at the most convenient times.
I don't understand. It should be working by now.
Take the ember and go. Once the parasite is sedated, you can give me back that damn stone.
I can't leave you here. Not like this.
Spare me. I'll be fine. You got another promise to keep.
Ada has been completely stripped of her strength and is forced to run and hide until the medicine finally begins to work. But even when she regains her strength, she can't risk another fight just yet. The Black Robe's bloodlust has no end, and it's only a matter of time before he finally shows his true colors. Once he leaves, the objective goes right back to what it's been for the entire DLC, catch up to Luis. This of course leads Ada through the Novistador sewer, which is much darker in the remake and more extensive. It now includes multiple enemy types rather than just the Novistadors. And instead of leading back to the main castle, it goes straight into a brand new encounter, the Garrador Arena. This new addition is honestly great. I'm a huge fan of the Garrador sections in the remake, and this honestly might be my favorite one. The room is very grimy and dirty. It could honestly pass as a room in RE7 or Village. After putting down the Garrador, the adrenaline halts itself for a minute as a way to signify that something is coming. When Ada hears the roar of the Black Robe, she knows what must be done. The only way to put an end to his terror is to face him once and for all.
That's it. Come on now. This spot will do.
The Black Robe takes on many different names, such as Basanta, and of course, U3. Now, U3 was a boss fight specific to Leon in the original, and the first phase of the fight was a race against time. It took place in what is essentially a death trap. The floor would give out, which caused the maze to slowly shrink. All of this happened while U3 followed closely behind. In Separate Ways, however, the fight begins on the ground. Basanta has now entered his true form, which now means there are no more hallucinations for him to hide behind. No, it's just him and Ada.
Can't stand a clingy type. Time to end this for good.
He uses various attacks to pressure Ada throughout the entire fight. He uses his tail to either swipe or crush, all while deploying explosive parasitic mines on the floor. It's really involved and feels like an upgraded version of the original. The attacks mixed with the evasions almost feel like a dance. It's a really well-tuned boss fight, and it's pushed even further when the second phase finally begins. After Pasanta falls for the first time, we think the fight is over, but that is far from the case, because the moment we grab the loot, he awakens. After Ada is tossed into the cave below, the second phase begins. He's much more volatile during this phase. He moves around like a sandworm, and his attacks are much more brutal. And in return, Ada has to get her hands even dirtier than before. After defeating Pasanta, the parasite within Ada begins to react violently to the death of its master. She falls to the ground and is hit with debilitating pain. This is the first time in the game we truly see Ada cower, but it's at this moment that her body purges the infection for good. The moment she killed Pasanta, the parasite had nothing left to live for and died along with him. Just as Ada regains full control, she is contacted by Luis, who informs her that he's not going to make it, and he thanks her for giving him the opportunity to set things right.
I'm sorry. I'm not going to make it. I'll send you my files. They should help.
The amber, Luis. Where is it?
Thank you for the chance to do good again.
What are you saying?
I'm grateful. Like I said, I'm just your girl Samaritan. How about you help Leon when I'm gone, eh? Speaking of...
Ada finally makes it to where Luis was killed, and she finds out that Krauser is the one who did it. And on top of that, he took the amber. She doesn't hesitate to pursue him, and in the process, she makes sure to let Leon know where Ashley is being taken.
Leon, there's only time to say this once, so listen up. They took your friend to the top of the clock tower. If you hurry, you might get there before she turns into one of them.
So you aren't heartless after all. I guess I should be thankful.
Yeah, you should.
The rest of the castle section is pretty much just an uphill battle along the cliffside. It's a last-ditch effort to close in on Krauser. Now, in the original Separate Ways, Ada is actually the one to kill Krauser and not Leon. This event takes place on the island. It made more sense for that to happen in the original, mainly because the two of them were actually working together, and it showed where her loyalty truly lied. But in the remake, they completely altered Krauser and his motives, along with his relationship towards Ada, which is practically non-existent. It wouldn't make any sense for any of that to happen in the remake. But while Ada tracks down Krauser, along the way there are certain rooms that are ripped directly from the original RE4. Now, this is all happening while Leon makes his way towards Salazar, and when Ada finally sees their confrontation, she for some reason calls him a good boy again.
Good boy. Just keep him busy a little longer.
I think my favorite thing about this sequence in general is how quick it is. So Ada moves through this entire area relatively quickly. It's not a really long section, but in that time, Leon manages to scale the clock tower and fight Salazar. And when Ada finally gets down the elevator, she's only alone in the boat room for like maybe 20 seconds before Leon arrives. Bro is booking it. But it's in this room where Leon and Ada reunite, and it also marks the end of the castle section, making way for the island.
Ah, damn it.
Looking for something?
Just like the main game, Leon asks if Ada has changed at all in the last 6 years. And of course, she doesn't give him an answer. But after playing and seeing her perspective, we can categorically say that she has changed in a way. Her change is different to Leon's. It manifests itself in another form. Her change comes primarily through her actions and not her words. It's her actions that allowed Luis to fulfill his need of becoming a hero. And her actions are ultimately the reason why Leon is even able to ask her that question in the first place. Because without her helping him from the shadows time and time again, who knows what could have become of him in that village? She doesn't fish for affirmation. She doesn't have to take credit for some righteous act. No, she does so because she wants to, and that's something she'll never admit. When the two of them arrive at the island, we see a different angle of Ada's exit. She puts a tracker on Leon just before he drives away.
Story of my life.
Rather than throwing us directly into the action, Capcom instead starts the section off with silence. And that silence just so happens to be shared between Sadler and Krauser. This is actually the first time in the DLC that we get to see Sadler at all, and it comes at a crucial point in the story, because Krauser has just given him the amber. Ada watches this entire exchange go down through her sniper scope, but it's not just what's in front of her that she needs to worry about.
Whose blood are you here for this time? Mine or Sadler's?
That all depends on you.
Wesker once again shows up, but this time he has a gun pointed at her head. He's come to give her a new objective, and refusal isn't an option. Ada, of course, doesn't know what lies within the briefcase just yet, or its purpose, but she doesn't have a choice. She must do as she's told.
And remember, I do not like...
Waiting, I know.
Following this scene, Ada is thrown directly into action. And just like the main game, the island is the shortest section of the entire DLC. She actually goes through the same exact areas as Leon, minus a few brand new set pieces. The cool thing about it though is that she moves through these locations either before or after Leon, and this affects how the encounters play out. Ada goes through the Wrecking Ball sequence before they get the chance to, and because of this, the Ganados are at high alert. The pacing is relatively quick throughout this entire portion of the game. It's pretty much just one encounter after another, but after escaping the Regenerators, Ada is brought to one of the most iconic parts of the original, the gondola. The gondola was actually a part of the village in the OG, but they decided to move it here to the island. Following this is a brand new action set piece specific to the remake, which is essentially a war zone filled with turrets and soldier ganados. Ada storms the compound relentlessly. This area is honestly similar to the climactic run with Mike and Leon, but to a smaller scale of course, and it also leads to something much more sinister. Upon clearing the area, Ada stumbles into a testing facility. The facility itself has been ravaged and torn apart, and as she walks further, the ground begins to shake and the ceiling starts to crumble as a distant roar howls throughout the building. Something is being held here, and it clearly wants out. So the monster that Ada is running from is known as Martinico, and it's essentially an experimental BOW that became grotesquely deformed. And after it broke out of containment, the monster wreaked havoc on the facility and its researchers. But now, it has its sights on Ada. In terms of gameplay, it's your standard chase. Ada is able to squeeze through areas in order to avoid its wrath. But the creature has already caught on to her scent, and has no plans of losing her. Ada is now given a moment to sort of breathe and collect herself, but that soon ends when she finds herself staring down a rather familiar hallway. That's right, the lasers are back. They aren't as spectacular as they are in the original, but they're still really damn sick, and don't worry, this isn't the last you'll see of them. Funnily enough, the lasers were protecting the very room Ada needed to go. How convenient. The device she's been carrying all this time can be enabled from the terminal, and when she finally hooks it up, she realizes what Wesker has planned for the island.
Site inject into the main terminal. You're going to blow up this entire island, including the president's daughter. Won't that make things harder for you?
There's no room for half measures. The weak exist to serve the strong. Enough talk. Bring me the amber. I've arranged a way for you to get back to the island.
Copy that. On it now.
Being the rebel she is, she feels inclined to immediately fight back against his order, and ends up sabotaging the bombs, causing only a third of them to detonate.
You should have known by now, Whisker, that I don't always play by your rules.
Ada operates out of her own self-interest, and while doing so, she plants the seeds of her eventual betrayal towards Wesker. Now, the thing is, Ada can't just leave without saying goodbye to Martinico.
Only one way through this.
After Martinico gets diced to bits, Ada heads back to the main island via jet ski, and she just so happens to stumble into the climax of the story.
Exalt Thor, and let it be so.
Leon! Go!
Ada once again saves Leon and Ashley, but instead of retreating to the shadows, she is thrown into the spotlight. This is the final boss fight in both versions of Separate Ways. Ada battles Sadler before Leon, and it's in this moment we see another side of him. He walks around the arena like a tyrant, bearing godlike powers that hit like a truck. Despite his smaller stature, his power is nothing to scoff at, and in my opinion, he seems even stronger in this fight than Leon's. His attacks are incredibly deadly, and one wrong move can easily lead to a death. One of the most obvious changes from the original is the setting for the fight itself. It completely changes the vibe and the fight in general. The OG is way more claustrophobic, and it honestly feels like Sadler is constantly breathing down your neck for the entire encounter. But no matter the year, you still gotta shoot his nasty ass eyeball. Once the fight ends, Ada grabs the amber.
Control, come in. I have the package.
But unbeknownst to her, she's been tricked into thinking she won. What follows is the finale of both the DLC and the main game, and it all begins after Leon rescues Ada.
Ada!
Throughout the story, Leon and Ada's paths have aligned at times, but this is the first moment we see everything unfolding simultaneously. Everything has led them to this very platform, but both are driven by different desires, and it's this drive that pushes them to end it once and for all. In order to win the fight, they literally have to go their separate ways. While Leon fights Sadler head-on, Ada dives headfirst into the lion's den to retrieve the iconic rocket launcher.
Just what I was looking for.
The entire sequence is just as epic and grand as the main game, but this time, we get the full picture from Ada's perspective. Much like the original, it's a race against time. Ada fights through a relentless gauntlet of enemies to reach the rocket, and even when she finally gets it, her job isn't done. Now, she has to deliver it to Leon. On her way to the crane, Ada unexpectedly runs into Ashley, who urgently implores her to help save Leon. This moment adds a new emotional layer to the fight. It reminds Ada what's truly at stake other than her mission. And when she finally tosses the rocket his way, it marks the end of Sadler. Sadler may be out of the picture, but what he left behind still remains. When Ada finally gets her hands on the amber, it seems as though her mission is complete, but it isn't. And after finding out what Wesker plans to do with the amber, what he plans to unleash onto the world, she betrays him. In doing so, she answers Leon's question. She has changed. With the amber gone and most of the island still intact, Wesker is left on his boat, contemplating what comes next. It's revealed that he didn't need the amber after all, because sitting there, lifeless on the table, is Krauser. Wesker's plan was never foiled. Ada's betrayal was a mere hurdle. His dream of global domination will soon become reality.
Soon, the sun will set on the age of man.
Separate Ways is simply a fantastic DLC, an essential piece of the Resident Evil 4 experience. It ties the entire story together, filling in crucial gaps, and in doing so, it strengthens the narrative as a whole. It's also a substantial DLC. It wasn't just released for the sake of being released. No, it was made with purpose, and it drastically improved upon its predecessor. It walks a fine line between being a story add-on and its own standalone game. I mean, hell, it feels more substantial than the Resident Evil 3 remake, which was sold at full price. Everything about it is just great, and it will go down as one of the best, if not the best, Resident Evil DLC of all time. It's an unforgettable chapter in an already unforgettable game.